today I get to hand over my boat working abilities, tasks, while I go on board and do some editing inside the Viking, because we have an extra set of hands today. Our friend Ryan, who actually was pretty familiar with doing boat work in the community, you may have seen him a few times on SV Dallas doing work, knows about our project. We actually met through Brian and Karen and is really interested, so we snagged him for a day to come over here. We'll probably get him moving some bulkheads around later, but because Matt and I don't have anything to glass right now, we're like, you know what? We do have a bottom that needs to be painted. After 8 years of the nomadic life, involving crossing oceans in a 34-foot Sabre, refitting an aluminum boat, and then taking that to the Arctic Circle, we're back at it again with a brand new build. This is Matt and I'm Jessica. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and join us every week as we start our newest project of building a 42-foot catamaran from the ground up.
Taking full advantage of it now.
So the guys are getting ready to put on the second barrier coat, which...
A little windy last night, apparently.
Yeah, we had some thunderstorms. Which, look how nicely that went on yesterday. It rolled on so smooth. Matt and I did the job in probably about an hour.
Did you introduce Ryan to us?
Kind of. Not like officially to the camera, but...
Oh.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Ryan, and I have volunteered to come help you guys out for a time.
We did. Yep, and we, of course, we didn't even give him the fun project of the catamaran. He gets to, but there will be work on that a bit later. We're going to steal him for 2 weeks later this summer.
Yep, 2 weeks later on the summer, but today is Pacemaker remodel time.
Yep, we got to get this boat in the water. So what the plan is, Matt has the small roller that I was working with yesterday, and he's going to get a lot of the areas that are tougher to hit with the big roller, and we'll also go back with the chip brush for some of those little spots. Ryan is going to start at the bow with the big flat areas and work back, and I think Matt will also end up taking the roller under the small areas there. And since this is really not a three-person job, I mean, it could be, but we just get into each other's way. And as we said, this stuff rolls on so well, we don't really need all hands on deck. I'm gonna go do some editing and let these guys work.
Right over that water.
Oh, and I did just want to point out that yesterday I didn't get much coverage of Matt and I doing the barrier coat bottom, because like literally that first scene I filmed, I went to go get Matt, shot him, came back to my spot, and I realized that my roller had been rubbing against our GoPro, so I got paint all over it, and these lenses are not interchangeable. You get one lens with the GoPro 8, so luckily Matt had waxed it and we're able to kind of clean it off. I took some of our Tilda Boat soy-based cleaner to the media mod, but yesterday was a pretty short filming day. But the guys are already finishing up with the first barrier coat here. Again, that stuff just rolls right on. Ryan, I don't think, believed us when we said that we'd get 2 coats on before lunch, starting around 9 o'clock in the morning. But yeah, I think Matt's gonna do like a tackiness test, and then we'll start getting the actual bottom paint ready to go on.
Pour yourself some.
Look at that bright, bright blue.
That's pretty.
It's somewhere between Smurf blue and...
I think it is Smurf blue. I like that color.
Ooh. All right, so we've got Ryan starting on the bow where he had started before, so that area is pretty tacky. Matt's gonna follow behind with the smaller roller, and they're just gonna slowly work their way back and around.
And it is the perfect consistency.
Yep, Matt's doing the thumbprint test right now.
Actually looks like it goes on well too.
This is way better than that stuff last year, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So much better than the bottom paint on Delos.
I can't say that on film.
Ooh, those are fighting words.
I'm sorry, Brian.
Hey.
I'll be back with walk out.
Okay.
While we have Ryan's extra set of hands here, and because I'm a little awkward at grabbing things, him and Matt are going to try and get in Bulkheads 8 and 9, which are going to be the other transverse ones
How do we get around that corner?
that sit at the very end.
Gonna have to go high.
Okay.
As you can tell, it's good to have some strength because I don't know how I would handle this. Lift, boys, lift.
I'm losing it. Can we go horizontal?
I got it. I got your side.
My foot's caught in the...
It's way more stable this way than it is vertical.
Just shout if you need me. So that is as far as she goes right now. We realized that if we do want to put that one in place, which now we know we have to be able to have it inside the tent, once we go get the other bulkhead, we're gonna have to lift that up and over, so may as well do that one first. Alrighty, I'll come a lend a hand.
Good enough.
Look at these rock stars go. Darn port side.
Uh-huh.
The Gerber hole, always causing problems.
Only it.
Matt and Ryan are going to put the last coat of bottom paint on the Pacemaker. I'm going to continue editing videos, and I think when it's done, we'll call it a successful day. And now for my favorite part of the day. Well, kind of. It's not just ending the workday, but it's getting to relax up on the flybridge of the Viking, just kind of sit here, let the breeze roll in through the front. We have to say a big, big thank you to Ryan for coming out today and helping us. Probably not what he was expecting when he said he wanted to come help with the catamaran, but unfortunately we were just in a stage where it was like one person, Matt, prep work on bulkheads, but hopefully he'll be back in the future and he can do like some real catamaran work. Yeah, so the bottom of the Pacemaker is painted, which means not much longer here on this Viking, which is so nice and spacious and wonderful. We will miss it. But on to different things, because we're always changing our plans. It is official that we are no longer residents on the Viking here, which is a shame because as big of a project as she looked to take on last fall when we first saw her, we absolutely have fallen in love with her. And even though all of the projects have not been done by us, if you can see there is new vinyl in here that was hired out. We did put some elbow grease into it, and of course living on it for a few months here as we started the build, it really started to feel like home. But now that the Pacemaker is in the water, we'll be handing this over to the new owner. But just wanted to do a little walkthrough and show you the things that we have done since we took it over kind of in October of last year. If you'll remember, one of the first things that we did was to start taking out the old cushions. We knew they were going to have to be replaced, but we did save the fabric to template. So up in the V-berth, the projects that we have done there is to get new foam. And I did new cushion covers for that. We also took off the ceiling, which is side in boat terms, and we replaced that with new carpet. Of course, everything has been washed down and all of the wood has been oiled. But then in the overhead area, you might remember that there was some rot in the hatch. So that is getting replaced still. But Matt did go through and put some new foam core where we took out the rotten balsa. And then we went through with a 1/4 inch plywood, made a template out of that and cut it down to size for a new overhead in that section. And of course, one of the other quick and easy but very noticeable things that we did was to take out the old carpet. It had been there for quite some time. It was getting very dirty. So back in the winter, just before we received the container, we went ahead and put new carpet down on all of the floors, which has made a huge difference. And a lot of it was just cleaning, really getting in there with some elbow grease, of course, like the counters, all of the wood, those were scrubbed and cleaned up. We did go through and put in a new AC unit, which I think would have been on our tab if we stayed on this boat for 2 years, but because we were only on it for a few months, the new owner did agree to pay for that, which was really cool. We got to enjoy that through like May and June. It was super, super helpful. And then I think the other biggest changes were in the galley area. One of the first things we did even before we moved on was to put a new electric stove on there, an induction stove. So that replaced the old one that had been cracking, which we couldn't use at all. So that needs to be done before we moved on board. And then lastly, another purchase which we didn't take care of until we were moving off, so we had about a week or two to enjoy it just because it was kind of like a big item, which of course we were not sure if we wanted to put our own money into if we're going to be living on there for just a few months, but the new owner also did purchase a new refrigerator freezer for the boat. So Matt and I got that installed. It fits right into that little space and so much bigger than just like the dorm fridge that we had been using for a period of time living on there. But all in all, I'm very proud of the work that we did, and now she is sitting in her new home near the South Beach portion of Kentmore Marina, which if you can see these trees behind me right now, they're in bloom. Apparently it only happens when it gets really hot out in the summer, and it's so incredibly pretty. And the beach is right behind us, so you can watch the sunsets. I do have to say that the owner offered us a slip next door to it on the Pacemaker so that we have the same view. And don't hate us for being too lazy, but we're so back and forth from the tent that we really like being right next to it. So that's why we're keeping the boat in the old spot there. But yeah, we had a great few months on this boat. Sad to see it go. If we had a little bit more money in our pocket, we probably would have purchased her ourselves for our time here, but as it stands, the Pacemaker was a pretty good deal, so I think she'll make a decent home. But goodbye, Viking. So we have been running into the issue lately of running out of supplies, and one of the biggest and most important things that we use for basically everything is our vinyl ester resin. And this is something that we've been going with since the beginning of the build. They've been using it in the factory at Vietnam, so all of the panels that we've received from them have been done in vinyl ester, and we just wanted to keep it going. Plus we like the way that vinyl ester works over epoxy, which I think there's been a little confusion sometimes in the techniques we use. People wonder why we're doing what we do. It's because vinyl ester and epoxy have different ways that they're handled sometimes. But we have been working with these 5-gallon tubs of it. We put in an order in, I think, mid-April for another 20 gallons. And people had warned us that supplies were going to be running out because in Texas, the factory that produces this had that freeze over the winter, and it kind of took everything out, so they're having to start from scratch. And it's the one supplier in the US, so pretty much all of the big boat builders are getting it. And we've put in quotes now, and they're saying that for about 2 to 3 months can we get more in. So we've been calling everybody, asking other larger builders if they can supply us with some, and it's just unfortunate that we can't get our hands on any right now. So a lot of the projects that we had been pushing forward in, of course, to be able to start getting the boat assembled together, we can't because we need vinyl ester to start assembling different parts of that. But what we can do is get to work on the floors, because for that we can switch over to a polyester resin, which is still readily available. We can buy it right up the street at West Marine. And it's not as structural, the flooring pieces. So we've talked to the builder, and we're on WhatsApp with him just about every day, checking progress things and asking. So they said going to polyester is fine. And that's what we're going to be doing for that. There is the option for epoxy, but if we switch over to that, there's really no going back. So we wanted to stay away from that. So yeah, it's a little unfortunate that we couldn't buy more back in April, but it does have a shelf life of only 3 months, and it has to be stored in a temperature controlled environment, which this tent is not most of the time. So we really could only buy what we're able to store within the marina restrooms and inside the tent. So wish us luck that we can get our hands on some soon. If you know of any suppliers that have some, definitely let us know. But otherwise, we're going to be moving on to floors, which is a long project and that we can use that polyester resin for.
As we patiently wait for our new thing of vinyl ester, they keep promising that we're going to get it anytime soon. We are looking for other projects, other things that we could do. The containers arrived, so now we have the floor pieces. So what we've done is we've gone through and we're starting to fit that, and it is a process. But this is, when I kind of explain it and show this, you'll see how these types of boats are so much different than anything production. They're just built to a totally different standard, and I love it. I love details like this. So the way the floor is, again, they have that big web, that big strip down there that we've shown before, as you've seen us try to step over it. That adds, of course, a whole skeleton to it. It's a whole framework that goes in there. But each one of those boxes are completely watertight. They're going to be watertight. So if we ever to hit anything and rip the bottom off the boat, each one of those little things are going to help keep us afloat. The floor itself is above the water line already, so there's that benefit with it as well. But kind of the big thing is going to be is how are we going to bond this down? With each one of those being individual little pieces, you can't climb in there and glass it from the inside. So we've got to do something that's, again, a bit of a process, but it just all makes sense in the end. What we'll do is we're making those 90-degree flanges, like just as showing probably on the screen right now. And what they're gonna do is those act on anything that's, of course, a right angle, anything that's the fore and aft pieces or the side-to-side pieces of the web. But when we get to the hull side area, those things, of course, curve in. They're not direct 90-degree corners. So to do that, and we still need to bond both the bottom part of the glass of that foam core and the top part of the foam core. So to do that, so we make sure that we have a very good attachment, and of course, again, it's strong and it's going to be watertight. It's a little bit different. What we'll do is the floor itself is going to be bonded, but to allow us to be able to glass the bottom side, so we can do it from, of course, the top up above, what we're going to do is we'll bond these pieces down. Then along all of them, we're gonna cut these 3-inch strips out, which goes through the top glass, through the foam core, but does not cut through that bottom fiberglass of these panels. And these will lay against the hull side. And then we will glass from here up along the hull side. Then this piece that we cut out, the relief piece that we cut out, that will get bonded back into place. And then we'll glass fiberglass over that on the top side. So again, it makes a really strong structure. This is the way that it's done on high performance yachts all over the world. It's such a solid way of doing it. And that's what we're gonna be doing for the next month, maybe. It's a big process. We got a lot of floor to do. After stepping on this surface and jumping between those webs for the past couple months now, finally getting to that point where we're getting ready to build the structure that is going to be our floor, our cabin sole within this. First thing I need to do, though, is kind of find a good base, a good level point for us. So that's what I'm doing today, is just going fore and aft along this web and getting rid of all the high spots. Eventually we'll fill them in the low spots, but making sure that it's perfectly level from side to side and fore and aft. And then we'll have a good base for our floor. You can see it's a little bit of a high spot. Pretty much wherever any of these bulkheads that come across here from side to side that go perpendicular to the length of the hull come across, they are a bit high. And of course, in between them, if I put it both on both of them, we're nice and level. So there's no real issue there. But what I need to do now is to cut each one of these webs down so it is kind of that proper all the way along the whole length of this to make sure everything's perfectly fair with where it's supposed to be. So for cutting these bulkheads, we're just basically getting off that extra couple of millimeters of width using a rasp, which is probably the best tool for this. This one's actually a phenomenal one. 2 different grits, basically either side, but it cuts right straight through this stuff. If you go through where the foam is and that little bit of fiberglass, does a really good job of finishing this off. And then I don't need to use any power tools for it, which is very pleasant for my ears. Resting where it's supposed to be and find out how level these things really are. And then that's the work of going through and balancing this all out. Now that I have this spine, so the part that runs fore and aft, I have that perfectly level, basically the whole length of it. So it should be fine there. And that is going to act as my reference point. Now you can see that makes it so this like web, and each one of these webs are a little bit proud on either side. So now what the job is to use our reference point, the middle piece, and to look at our level and see what I actually need to shape off. If you look at it, you can see that it is just needs a bit shaved off on this side. This side, though, needs to come down a little bit more. Well, once I have those things so they're all smooth all the way across from side to side, I again can go and place my level between any of these webs, side to side, fore and aft, diagonally, and it should all be level all the way around.
Hey everyone, we wanted to answer your question from our latest video where you were asking why didn't we just leave the container here next to the tent where we could store all of our pieces and then just kind of like use it as a workshop too.
Yeah, would have been pretty nice, but...
It would have been, but the thing is we're only renting the tent. We don't have use of all of the land. And even though you see nothing but open space behind us right now, come October, there's not gonna be like an empty square inch around here. So
yeah, we would have it for a very short period of time and then have to sell it. It makes it fairly difficult. If you ever look at Craigslist, there's a bunch of them for sale, and a lot of people can't get rid of them because it's the transport that ends up adding a lot to the cost to it, not the actual trailer or the container itself. We did talk when we first got here about
doing that,
getting that, but again, there's not. This is all rentable space for storing boats in winter, and they use, as Jess said, every square inch of it. So then to ask them to take a big chunk of it for that container is a little much.
But as you can see, we have compressed most of it down here, and we're also hoping that by late fall it's all going to be attached to the boat anyway, because by the time we need the heater to run, we want to be in a closed space that we don't have to heat the whole tent. So that is the plan. We've got some of the things against the sidewall, again, the tent. That's not too bad. So.
And everything here is gel coated and infused panels. So there's no exposed core on any of this. And talk to the designer, talk to the builder, and it's all exterior grade stuff anyway, so it's not an issue as long as it's supported well enough that we're not going to have problems with it just from its own weight pressing against places. So we did kind of brace it out. It looks like a crazy pile right now, but there is some thought behind how everything was laid out, so it is supported on.
And the two of us can maneuver the stuff
Yep.
fairly easily. We actually did this ourselves the morning after the container came in, like an hour
Yep.
and a half.
So all we do is we just put a tarp over it to keep sun off of it, but everything else is
ratchet strap to keep it all
waterproof. It's not an
together.
issue whatsoever, and it's going to need a good scrubbing anyway when we put it in there.
So that is the answer of why we did not get one of the containers to store all of these parts.
Give me your freedom. Whoa, yeah, me to pieces. Yeah, I need it. Want your pandemonium. Life is so easy. Whoa, you love me to pieces. Yeah, I need it. Want your pandemonium.
Yep. 2 weeks later on the summer, but today's Pacemaker remodel time.
Yep, we got to get this boat in the water.
He's on loan from Delos right now, so that's basically how it works out. He is. You may have seen him in videos where he did Brian's The Bottom on Delos. Huh?
I said I've already said all that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, when I like went to my, I said it like I haven't officially introduced, like I introduced him to the audience without him being in.
I'll get the
Fine.
painting.
You just shut your mouth and you paint.
Yep.
She's got this part taken care
I
of.
know my place. Sorry.
Just sit there and look pretty.
Yep.